imagine we are trying to do this update one operation for 1 million times and hitting the MongoDB each and every iteration. That's really, really bad practice, right? Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we'll be covering one of the business use case. As an example, let's say we have a MongoDB collection users, and if you see the structure, it's like name, address one, okay, name, address one, and address two. And the use case, let's assume that okay, from address to field, we have a pattern where city name one, comma space, state name one is there, right? So the requirement could be like, let's say if I want to split this up into two separate fields, city and state. Okay, so how exactly we gonna do is like we basically at the end we ideally need to run through each and every record, split this field and set into a two separate fields as city and state. So that's pretty much it on this one. If you want to know the count of this, that would be around 1 million. Okay, 1 million records. Cool. Now let's jump onto the code. So this is like a mini setup. I have created it and it's in the TypeScript. So I have the some dependencies, TS node TypeScript, TS node logger. This is like a minimal logger, which is kind of a lightweight logger, and the print it prints in a similar to the log4j and all. And of course we need MongoDB. And here if you can see I have two scripts, migration 1 and 2. Migration 1 is like a very basic one and it's not performance effective. It's like a very vague way of doing stuff, so I'll walk you through that first so that you'll get a better context, then we'll switch on to the more optimized way of doing this specific migration. Yeah, excuse me. So we have a config.json file, and if you can see there is a simple URI, DB name, collection name, and the batch size. And of course, this is only for the video purpose. All these values, at least these three values, should be loaded from the environment variable. So coming to the migration one script, as you can see, Mongo client, and I'm just having these values from the config and initializing the logger. And first, I'm trying to get the client object, MongoDB client object, by just simply passing the URI. And after that, if you can see, there is an async function which is like a self-invoking function, and inside that first we are trying to connect to the MongoDB. Later I'm just storing the values in a way that it's easy to use it down the line basically, yeah. So DB collection, which gets the collection object over here, and state here, and this is kind of a query we are using it to get the count documents. I explicitly written here there is a small concept which relies on this query. Let's say if you want to run this as a one-time thingy, then technically you don't need this query because anyway the state field won't be there and you can just simply make it as an empty object, and the migration basically covers for all the records, right? And let's say if you want to run this as in a rolling migration, let's say for first batch, like from October 1st to October 18th, then after a while, if you want to run that again. So in that case, what you can do is if the state or the city field, if that doesn't exist, then basically we are trying to uh, update the records for only that specific records where state field is not there, right? So that's the main for criteria we are trying to consider over here. So let it be as is so that it can support as a rolling migration, right? And first I'm trying to get the count of this thing so that I can just print it, and accordingly I'm just in down also we're just trying to print the progress around. Okay, now this is all like an initialization, right? Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to create a cursor on the MongoDB find query on the users collection, and the batch size is 1000 over here. So batch size here basically 1000, as in it just tries to retrieve only 1000 records in the first thingy instead of retrieving everything. And let's say after, even if you try to iterate on the cursor, if it reaches 1000, then in the next in the next has next call, or on the next series thingy, it will try to fetch the next 1000 until and unless it reaches to the end of the collection. Okay, so this batch says the purpose of batch says is that specific flow. Then It's a simple try catch block where what we are trying to do is we are just simply iterating this cursor, and for each next object we will get the first element. Like for the first iteration you will get the first element, for the second, and until and unless this cursor has been consumed everything. Okay, so for the first iteration, let's say we are storing the doc object, right? And this doc record has an address to field, as you can see here. Let me just run this specific command. Address to city1 and city name 1 space comma space separated state name 2. So what we are doing is I'm just splitting this one with delimiter as comma and a space following space, and the order is also important because in the records it's stored as city first then state. So that's how I'm just splitting it up and naming this as city and state. So what I'm doing simply is as soon as I split the address to field, as I'm storing in city and state, I'm updating the command updating the record with underscore id as the identifier and setting the state and city fields. And as of now, it all looks good, right? Like just iterating for each record, updating that specific record, and based on the modified count, I'm just incrementing the processed variable. And here for the logging purpose, percentage completed, I'm just logging this here. Once it's done, I'm just at the end, migration completed successfully. And on the finally block, I'm just trying to close the MongoDB connection. This is where most of the devs initial, like, they wouldn't care of closing the connections and all, but it's a really good practice, and I would, in my opinion, it's mandatory to close all the open connections. Okay, and this specific snippet is basically if I want to close the script, like stop the script in between the basically this is like a second on handler. And here once we do control C, let's say as an example, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to first close the connection, then gracefully exit the process. Of course, this process.exit has 1 and 2 as options, and 0 is basically, sorry, 1 and 0. 0 is like a proper exit of the process without any errors. And if you pass 1, then it basically exit code will be as an error state. Okay, so that's pretty much on the migration one. So let me just try to run this specific migration one file. Oh wait, sorry, I need to just run into the that specific folder npm run one. As you can see now it's starting, and as it's running for each and every record, the progress also, if you see, it's like 0.4% and all, right? And you can imagine it's gonna take its sweet time to run. So I'm just trying to close it, and as you can see, I'm db connection closed, which is being handled on the process signal interruption, right? Okay, now let's jump on to the tool Studio 3D to just see the records whether they updated it or not. And as you can see, for each record, that specific city and state fields have been set correctly, right? So this specific line update menu, I'm just resetting it to the. Now let's jump on to migration to script. So here it's the same flow, like initial setters, initialization, and console.time. If you are not aware, so what we can do is you can give a identifier over here, and later at the end state, let's say, you can do with the same key console.time end. So what it basically calculates and just dumps the total time it took between the time, like console.time over here till from this point till this point, how much time it took, it just basically prints. So this is like one of the inbuilt console time function. Yeah, time and time end, it goes hands in hand, otherwise it just throws an error hand in hand. Okay, cool. Now if you see, it's the same invoking function, self-invoking function, and we are trying to connect to the MongoDB. Once it's connected, I'm just storing that specific necessary fields and query also, as I explained earlier. It can be changed based on the requirement, whether it's like a one-time migration or it's like a rolling migration. Okay, again, I'm just storing the count, total records to process, and adding a log and starting the batch again. Okay, sorry, basically starting the cursor again. The same flow, but there is a very specific line which changes the whole performance, right? So if you see here on the collection, this is basically db.users.initialize unordered bulk op. So what this function do is it returns a bulk operation object, and once you get that object, you can do something like this. On line number 36, find and update one. So you could do insert and other any other MongoDB operations. So what does it do is as soon as the execution reaches this specific line, and if it executes this line, this technically doesn't apply this update on the DB directly. So what does it exactly do is it basically stores all these operations until and unless you call dot execute on that bulk operation object. Okay, now I think you are trying to get the heck of it. What we're doing is as soon as we reach the batch size, in our case, it's like 100K. Okay, so once I set the sum operation in this bulk operation object, I'm just incrementing it so that as soon as the count reaches the batch size 100K, I'm just trying to execute the whole bulk operation so that once it reaches this execute thingy and executes this specific line, then all the operations what you saved in this bulk stream operation object that gets applied onto the MongoDB. So this is very, very performance efficient because this specific its function itself been given from the MongoDB so that we can leverage this function to do the in a very high volume operations, and it's kind of a self-explanatory bulk operation. And there is a small another function also, initialize ordered bulk op. So in this case it's unordered, and in our case it's really not required. It's like it has to be ordered, but based on the different business requirements it can be ordered bulk operation also, and there is another thing. Okay, so in our case, unordered should suffice, and ideally unordered bulk up will be more faster than the ordered bulk up. Okay, so I hope till now it's clear. I'll just go down a bit. So once the batch size reaches, so let's say we have 1 million records, right? And we have the batch size as 100K. So as we keep on counting, once it reaches 100K iterations, as it reaches the batch size, I'm just executing that, and based on the result of the modified count, I'm just storing incrementing in the processed variable. Again, it starts with 0. Okay, so once it's done, I'm just logging it. So for each batch, I'm just logging the percentage how much it got covered. So for the first batch, as it's like 1 million we have, as it's an 100K batch size, we'll get as 10%. Okay, I'll run through that, and you'll get more picture on it. You'll get a better picture of it. So once the batch is hit, once this is done, what we are doing is we are trying to create another unordered bulk operation and basically initializing to the same variable. Reason, this is only for the first batch, right? As it's like a 1 million, as the batch size is 100K, ideally it will be like 10 batches, 10 batches total, right? And basically it just goes to the same iteration, and we are doing the same operation, right, on the find and update one. So it's safer to have the same bulk operation object, and you are just trying to overwrite with the fresh unordered bulk operation. As once you run this execute thingy, it basically this object is like an invalidator and you can't really use this. So what I'm doing is reinitializing with a new unordered bulk operation object, and it just resumes in the next iteration. Okay, let's say if you have 1 million 10,000 records. So this batch size, as it's like modulus, and for each batch size it just fits, right? But later for the last chunk, like let's say for the last 10,000 chunk, we need to handle that chunk also, right? So that basically happens after the while block. Let me just scroll down. So this is this specific batch thingy, like count percentile batch size, like exactly when the count reaches that batch size. But for the last chunk, what you can do is if count of batch size is not equal to 0, so all the let's say the remainder chunk of it, that will try we need to handle it, right? Otherwise it will be skipped and it's like a data mismatch again. So what we are doing is once we get the reminder, a chunk. I'm just executing it. The same flow. Processed, I'm incrementing it and printing the total records modified. And once it's done, on the finally block, client.close, migration completed. Okay, I hope this is clear now. You can dig more into the actual documentation, like how exactly more efficiently we can use initialized, unordered, or ordered bulk operations. Yeah. Now let me just run this second migration script, and now you can see the difference now. Total records to process 1 million, and as you can see, in 4 seconds itself we covered 100K. But in the earlier migration one, you can see the difference. There is a lot of difference, right? So let me just give a gist of it. So it's like 13, it started, let's say, and 13th second until 14th second, it didn't even reach 1%. But here in our case, if you see in 4 seconds, it reached 10%. So there is a significant difference, right? So yeah, this is a very bad practice, and don't get into conclusions that okay, as it's working we can do. But imagine we are trying to do this update run operation for 1 million times and hitting the MongoDB each and every iteration. That's really really bad practice, right? Safe way to do it for heavy operations like heavy volume operation. As you can see, in 45 seconds you literally completed the migration for a 1 million batch. And there are some variable parameters you can tweak, like batch size, and here this also. So basically the more effective variable is batch size over here, and this thing you can tweak it to 10,000 if so that it will be like more faster and all. But yeah, the migration is done, right? Let me just run this and just re-verify. See, everything is clean, and it was working as expected, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it on the migration part. Like this is like a one small business case, but I hope you got the better picture how you can tackle on the migration scripts when you want to do apply on the Mongo database. That's pretty much on the migration part. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.